Look, I need to preface this by saying, my name is Emily. I run this channel, the Azura Media Club, home of the Bad Girl Coven. Subscribe, stick around. I have a confession to make. I've never watched a single fucking episode of The Big Bang Theory. I don't know much about The Big Bang Theory. I have no interest in watching The Big Bang Theory. Okay, small amount of interest. Only because this show, Young Sheldon, fucking surprised me, alright? I know it's a phenomena, right? Like, friggin' everyone loves The Big Bang Theory. It's this really popular show. I've always found it to be kind of appalling, in a sense. But that's just because that's what I've heard from people. And also, at the same token, I hate and despise laugh tracks in shows. It's terrible. Stop putting laugh tracks in your shows. It's the worst goddamn invention man has ever created. Fucking stop it with the laugh tracks. I literally am on the edge of like, should I watch The Big Bang Theory because there's a goddamn laugh track in it. I fucking hate laugh tracks. So, all that being said, much like Young Sheldon, at first, I've only seen clips of The Big Bang Theory, and what I've seen looks okay. It doesn't look like anything crazy. And I know that Young Sheldon is the spin-off to that show, right? But I don't give a fuck about that show. I give a fuck about this show. I saw clips of this show on Facebook, on YouTube, I think. Mostly Facebook, if I remember correctly. I don't know why it wanted me to watch Young Sheldon clips, but I'm glad it did. I honestly really like this show. It's not like a Good Place or an Owl House level, but I'm invested. It's good background filler content that I can watch on the side while playing RuneScape or something. Honestly, I was very surprised, okay? Like, I just thought I was gonna go into this, like, watch the show, be like, okay, that was kind of funny, and then move on with my life. But there's a lot of really good life stuff in here. A lot of good family aspects. It's definitely that kind of family show, and I like that. And then there's even a little bit of humor that would go beyond your typical family show. And I know Sheldon, and it's like he's this nerdy kid, and like there's all this smart humor in there too. But the show actively makes fun of that kind of humor. And I'll be the first to admit, I understand that I'm missing out on a lot of references to The Big Bang Theory. And they love to shove that in your face too, like, hey, look, this is a reference to that thing you haven't seen. But I find it funny that most people hear soft kitty, little kitty, all that, whatever that song, like that whole song, and they think of a scene from The Big Bang Theory, which to me, after having seen that scene from The Big Bang Theory, I'm like, I don't think of that. I think of Sheldon, young Sheldon, little Sheldon, and his mom, and that whole thing. And I've seen clips of The Big Bang Theory, and there's a lot of very similar ways that the characters interact and vocally and act very similar. And I don't know if a lot of that I've seen was after the show had come out, because they were kind of running simultaneously for a minute there, from what I understand. But yeah, I was really surprised. I thought the show was very good, actually. After having heard nothing but, oh my god, why does this show exist? I hate this show, blah, 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 all this stuff. Obviously somebody was watching it out there. I know this is very normie TV, something I usually don't do and get into, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And I think a lot of that comes down to good writing. I feel like the scenarios in each episode are well written. I feel like they all kind of relate back to aspects of each character. They don't just feel like, oh, look at this wacky thing that's happening. It's like, these scenarios are built specifically for these characters to deal with these problems and learn something from it. And I know that's kind of a tired cliche thing, but just the way it's done is very good. And by the end of a lot of episodes, you get the feels because these characters learned something. You know, maybe they were mad at somebody and they apologize, and you're like, oh, look at that. Like, they learned their lesson. None more so than my favorite character in the show, Missy, who learns all of the time, you know, and really grows a lot as a character. And she's sassy and just, like, doesn't take anybody's shit, but also, you know, she can get emotional, too, at times. And she can be a very bad girl at times, especially later on in the series. Spoilers for Young Sheldon, by the way. Sorry, I guess I should have posted that up front, but I thought, especially in the final episode, oh, this is 1 to 6, seasons 1 to 6. This is what I've been able to see so far that's out right now, so. Especially in that final episode, I remember she's just, like, hating everyone and is just not having anybody's shit, and she's totally devoid and cut off and just giving everyone sass, and, you know, because she got, like, grounded for, like, 3 months for, like, stealing the car and running away with Paige in that one episode, and then, like, after that, it's like she snuck out and was smoking with that other girl and all of that, and, like, rented her the R-rated movie and stuff, but it's like, damn, like, she is so cold and, like, inwardly focused at that point, so being selfish, and I feel like it's good writing to just, at that point, you know, after all of that hardship, something real happens, you know, a big tornado is coming towards them, and her and her dad, that is, on the way back from the airport, and it ends up affecting a lot of characters, but they have this, like, moment where she's scared, you know, she's just a stupid kid, you know, a stupid teenager, over emotional, sure, but that's how you are as a teenager, and especially a teenage girl, and I'm not saying that as, like, a sexist thing, like, you know, like, oh, teenage girls are so much more emotional than boys. Growing up as what I thought a teenage boy, which obviously was a little bit incorrect, but I was very emotional and moody like that all the time, so I definitely relate to that in a cringy, like, I was a teenager once kind of way, but I think that's what I like about Missy, too, is she's a very relatable character, but also she's, like, pushing all of these boundaries, like, she has, like, this one episode, or, like, kind of an arc of the thing where she, like, starts getting into baseball, and she wants to try it for the team, but there's no girls team, and then she, like, gets rejected by, one of the characters. How do I not remember his name? He's actually, like, a prominent character later on, because he's, like, Mima's, like, boyfriend. Still is. I totally thought that was gonna I thought that was gonna be, like, a 1-season thing, and she was gonna go back to Sturgis there, but I guess not. I mean, I still want to see that happen. That's still an unresolved thread, right? Like, there was that episode where they're, like, imagining things or whatever, and that was one of the things that he imagined was, like, that he told her how he still feels, and then, like, you know, she took him back, but that was just, like, an imagination thing, so, like, I feel like that's still kind of an unresolved plot thread, is that he... Or maybe it's just that he's dealing with it, you know? But anyway, back to Missy and her character. She ends up, you know, taking this really hard, because as she should, you know, and then Mima goes and yells at the guy and gets her on the team, and she ends up being a great, you know, pitcher and stuff, so... Anyway. So... Yeah, when, like, she listens to her dad in that scenario with the tornado, and they get down in the ditch, and it, like, goes past them, and, you know, they're, like, super scared, like, at least she's super scared, and their truck like gets flipped over, and he's like, "Are you glad we weren't in the truck like you were thinking or whatever?" And she just like breaks down, and she's like, I didn't mean all that stuff that I said to Sheldon. I don't really hate him, and I don't. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. Like I don't actually hate you guys. Like I love you guys, and I don't know why I've been so bad and emotional lately, and that really hit home. After several episodes of her just like railing on everyone else, she has this really heartfelt and like cathartic apologies. I was trying to make that harder as a word than it was, and I just think that was really that meant a lot, and then of course Mima's house gets destroyed and all of that. That's kind of crazy. Her whole illegal gambling ring thing, in the back of her laundromat there. Interesting plot line. Fucking Georgie and his shit with his like pregnant wife there, or gonna be wife soon. They finally are gonna get married or whatever. Emily Osment, that's a weird sort of inclusion in this show. I remember her from like the Disney Channel days, like Hannah Montana and stuff. Definitely on the short list of like probably namesake reasons why I like chose that name, just because like that was a name that I heard back then. She's one of the reasons I heard that name and like got so attached to it, I guess. But yeah, I mean like I don't know. I just kind of have to jump all over the place because it's like I'm not gonna talk about like every individual episode, or like I'm just gonna kind of mention some random moments, and hopefully that's good enough, and talk about the characters and stuff, obviously. But yeah, so I like that whole thing with Georgie and her, because like it's like a whole big deal, Of course, Georgie, he's a Cooper. They're super religious like family. At least the mom, Mary, there is, and even though she's having crises of faith, by the end there, because they like kick her out of the church because of the whole Georgie thing. So, but she stands by her kids, and I think she's a good mom, and I definitely like her and Sheldon's relationship. It's sweet, but also he like calls her out on like God stuff. I mean, as a religious person myself, I mean, I'm not like super religious, but I do believe in God, and definitely put a lot of faith in a higher power. I think it's good to question things, for sure. I don't really resign to any one religion. I take whatever truths come to me, and that sound like something I would believe, as long as they don't like, even if they do contradict, I'll take certain information. It's kind of like a morality thing too, though. It's like, I know certain moralities like conflict and stuff, but it's like, I don't know, whatever resonates with me, I think that's what I need to take through my life there. But anyway, yeah, she's a good character. His dad, George, yeah, I was gonna say Georgie, but no, Georgie's his brother. George, his dad, as like a coach for the football team there, and he's kind of like just a typical dad sort of character, but he can be stern, like when he needs to be. But I think he adds a lot to like oppose the mom in a lot of things. They don't always see eye to eye, and I feel like he is a good father at the end of the day, even if he's not always there to show it every time, like but especially in the early seasons, like I remember the whole like Missy, him taking her to Red Lobster, and their daddy-daughter dates, which she's just like so embarrassed by later on. Yeah, and then she apologizes. That I like that aspect of like, she adds this like teenage character energy to this whole thing. But it's like, whereas Sheldon, he's like going to college and stuff. So he's constantly seen as like this little kid, because he is a little kid, but he's taking on all these big responsibilities. I think that's kind of the whole premise of his character as well, is him learning to deal with all of that, and like how would a child genius like deal with that. And then there's a character, Paige, who's like shows up sporadically. Her parents get divorced, and that kind of really takes a hard turn on her character to become more of a bad girl. And you know, girls mature faster than boys and all that, but she's kind of like, she's more intelligent than Sheldon in a lot of ways, but she kind of takes bad turns to her life in a lot of ways as well. And so I think that's kind of meant to show, well, not only a sexism angle to that whole situation, because Paige is a girl, so it's like, there's that aspect on top of her being a young prodigy kind of student. So in that way, Sheldon also gets a little bit of a benefit there for being a boy over being a girl. You know, and this all takes place in the 80s, so I mean, it's like, you know, like the late 80s. But so yeah, there's definitely that aspect to the whole thing. But anyway, I think she's kind of meant to represent where Sheldon could be if he loosened up a bit. But I feel like also she's the extreme of that. You know, like Sheldon, if he loosened up a bit, that's fine. But he doesn't need to go full Paige. But also, she has a lot of reasons to be as traumatized as she is with her situation, and as hard as it is. And, you know, in a lot of ways she has it not as good as Sheldon with being a young genius. Their paths kind of diverge a different way. So it's a nice reflection of how two characters that seem so similar at first can diverge into different paths there. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know, we'll see what they do with Paige and her character later on. I mean, I think last we left her, she was getting drunk at a college party or something as like a 13-year-old, so that's problematic in its own way, but I do like her and her character too. I think she definitely adds a lot to the mix there whenever she shows up. And there's some side characters like that only show up sometimes, and you know, there's a lot of prominent like side characters too that show up a lot more often, like Pastor, what's his face? I can't even think of their name. There's two pastors, but you know, they show up a lot, and obviously like Dr. Linkletter and Dr. Sturgis show up a lot, and they're more like prone with Sheldon and his whole college experience there. I like how they get him sent off to Germany, though. Like, Dr. Sturgis sets all this up, and then it's like, they all bring him money to, like, he doesn't have enough money to go, so then they all, like, bring him money, like the pastor, who hates the fact that he's, like, there in church, because, like, he always will, like, raise his hand and, like, point out the logical fallacies with, like, you know, all of the things that he's saying in church there. He has, like, an impressive knowledge, too, Sheldon. Like, he knows the Bible, he just doesn't believe in a lot of it, you know what I mean? So, it's a lot of interesting little intricacies to his character like that. I think that works pretty well. So, yeah, I mean, I think character-wise, especially, Young Sheldon definitely, shines as a pretty good example of some solid character work there. For a, you know, family show that, like, it's like an every week kind of thing, it's like this very popular, well-known thing. I just feel like they do a lot of good character work and a lot of good work with the family. A lot of really good emotional beats, you know? Maybe I just don't watch enough modern TV, but like, I've kind of given up on a lot of it because a lot of it kind of seems very formulaic, and in a sense this is formulaic, but I think that they also take it and go in a interesting direction with it and actually do some good stuff with their premise, and it's actually a semi-interesting premise, you know? And, like, seeing all the characters interact in their own different ways with each other and stuff is fun, too. I just think there's a good character dynamics and character growth, and, you even get to, like, see the actors, like, grow up. Like, Sheldon used to be, like, a really little kid, and then you see him, like, by the end, he's actually more, like, a teenager, you know, basically, so that's interesting. Going back and, like, watching little clips from, like, season 1 or something is, like, so very different from, like, how he is in season 5, and so, yeah. I don't know. I don't really have a ton to say, I guess, other than that. I just really like the show. I think it's fun. I think it's an enjoyable watch. Like I said, there's a lot of emotional beats and a lot of emotional moments in there that really carry it along. I think the writing is just good and clever a lot of times, and I'm not trying to say this is like a 10 out of 10 kind of show, obviously, but, you know, I think I'm going to give it like a solid 9 out of 10. I really enjoy it, and I think it's well done, you know, for what it is, for being the sort of family sitcom thing, you know. There's no laugh track. That's a big plus right there. There's a lot of good heart to the show, you know, and I like that. I like that a lot. It's well-written characters, well-written dialogue. Every now and again, it's, you know, a little... I don't feel like I ever was like, oh, this is super cringy, but, like, every now and again, you're like, oh, well, that was maybe not as good as some of the other things, but, you know, like, I feel like overall, it was... I went straight through. It was very bingeable for a show. You know, I just kind of went straight through the whole thing. I'd been like a couple weeks there, so. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's much else to say. I think I really enjoyed Young Sheldon. I'm as surprised as anybody else, you know? I think it was great overall. Yeah, very good. Very good show. I definitely recommend it. I can't wait for season 7 because that'll be interesting to see how the dynamic kind of changes and everything. I feel like they did do like a pretty good dynamic shift there. I feel like they add stuff to the show at the right times too to keep it interesting, keep it like fresh, and it's not just the stale routine every time, you know, like each episode is kind of its own thing, and that's pretty interesting. There's a lot of weird cameos too, like Steve from Blue's Clues is in there, Steve Burns, so like he just shows up at one point and he's like this comic nerd or whatever, and so he's in like a few episodes for some reason. I don't know, I just thought that was cool. I like him. Obviously, I used to friggin' love Blue's Clues when I was like a little kid. So, a lot of pop culture references as well, you know, of course, but, I know a decent amount of that, so, you know, hey, yeah. I didn't grow up in the 80s, but I know about the 80s because it's been shoved down my throat for the past, like, 20 years, so. Um, yeah, I just enjoyed it. I think it's great. I'm gonna stop rambling, so 9 out of 10. Until next time, don't forget to stick around, subscribe to join the Bad Girl Coven, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget, magic comes through the heart. Emily out.